Hi everyone and welcome to the Always Wolves End of Season podcast. I'm delighted to be joined this evening in person by Lord Jason Guy. How you doing, mate?
I'm brilliant, Dave. How are you?
I'm good. Great to be able to get to do one in person again rather than over the ether.
Yeah, I do enjoy the in-person ones, and I've been nagging you for a while, Dave, so it's good to see you in person again, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck into some chat tonight.
We are. We're gonna cover off in a second the agenda that we got tonight. We have making our in-person debut. Has been very popular doing the watch-along, coming on to extra time. 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗸𝗄𝗋𝗄. How you doing, mate?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Yeah, you delighted to be here for your first one?
I am. I'm normally on watch songs on my own losing, so it's fun to be around for other people.
Brilliant.
That's about right. And we have our resident psychologist here over in the corner, recently got his doctorate, Professor Paul. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And what I want to start by saying is thank you, and thank you, Emma, as well, for the amazing work that you've done all season. I've seen firsthand how much work that you put in, the editing, the recording, all the stuff in between that people don't see. So I think it's really important for me to say thank you for what you've done this season for the channel.
Thank you very much.
I
really appreciate that. I'll give you your tenner later, mate. Right, so the agenda tonight, actually, we're going to be doing part one. Is going to be a review of the season. Did we achieve our aims this season? Who has been the key to our success? Standout players, most improved players, something like that. Any flops? We're going to be talking, of course, about Gary O'Neill, his key strengths and weaknesses.
Why did you look at me when you said flops then, Dave? You went, any flops?
We're also going to be doing little grades, so like an end of season grade, so you can go from like an E to like an A star and stuff like that on any of the players, and of course on Gary O'Neill. We're going to also be talking about the engagement. Are the club engaged with the fans? Is there football apathy? And of course, part two, we're going to be looking at VAR, discuss Wolves' proposal on VAR, thoughts on refereeing standards, etc. And then section three, we're going to be looking ahead. What does success like for next season? Outgoings and ingoings, and where do we need to strengthen? So first of all, as we're making a nice little debut, I think we'll go with you first, Chelsea. Did we achieve our aims this season?
I think we achieved our aims of not going down, because I think our aims at the start of the season were very low, and I think the majority of fans in the country felt that as well. So I think the fact that we stayed up at the start of the season was a positive. But as we moved into the season and we had our really good success in the FA Cup, up to Coventry, and in the league trying to make it to Europe, I think a lot of fans' hopes and aims changed. And as soon as we got to the Newcastle game and we had that bad run of games, I think what success looks like can change over time.
Yeah.
So am I happy overall in looking at the season as a whole where we started? Yes, I am. Am I happy with the performance that we had in the last third of the season? No. But that's more to do with the lack of squad depth, the lack of players, the club's engagement in bringing in people, and not, I don't think the players. I think the players were emotionally, physically done, and that's not the players' fault, that's the board's fault.
Right, interesting. Thank you very much. That's a good way to start. Jason, over to you, mate. Look, I mean, where did, like what Chelsea said, what were our strengths and weaknesses? Where did we fall down? Where did we excel?
I think the turning point for me was the Coventry game, and I think at the start of the season, it's been well noted. Obviously, we're left without a manager with a couple of days to go. Gary O'Neill comes in. None of the fans bought into the Gary O'Neill appointment, because people thought after having the Real Madrid and Spain manager that Gary O'Neill wasn't big enough for the club, and I think he surprised a lot of people. The problem is with expectation levels as you start winning and start producing and good form. Just rise and rise, like when we got into Europe, and then it's a bit of a roller coaster because we can't, meet those expectations again. I think that's what happened with Gary O'Neill, to be fair, because he exceeded all of our expectations. First couple of months this season, up to the Ipswich game, I think we were scratching our heads a little bit. He was being bandied around very lazily and poorly as a PE teacher, but he seemed to turn it around. Now, when he got interviewed by obviously the board and Matt Hobbs said he was the standout candidate, and I believe that he's very thorough, and you can see how this group of players has bought into him. As Chelsea said, this group of players wasn't big enough, and I think with a slightly bigger squad, I think it would have the end of the season wouldn't have petered out as it did. But overall, we'd have took 17th at the start of the season. We finished 14th, and we're disappointed. So it's not the end of the world, and I think next season, given the support, given a few more players, yes, we've got to sell some to bring some in, but I think we could be in for a good season.
If you were to give it a grade,
Yep.
and I'll give you guys have a think about that over the season, like A* being, you know, we've won the quadruple, for example, and he's like
The club, the manager, who Dave?
Just the season as a whole to start with.
The season as a whole, I think I've got to say a C+. You know, looking at the expectation levels at the start of the season, which were on the floor, and then he gave us some real renewed hope. There was some players signed at the start of the season, and which weren't big names, which we'd been used to, and I think they all surprised us. And we've proven also that we don't have to spend 40, 30, 25 million pound and get some good players in. We've got some good players, but we do seriously need to strengthen in the summer and get numbers and get a much bigger squad. I think Gary O'Neill needs and wants to play with a bigger squad, and I think that's when we can all judge Gary O'Neill.
Absolutely, and we will come on to obviously the summer. Looking forward to that. Paul, you know, you might have a bit of a different twist looking at it. I think it's been covered off well. Most people had Wolves down for relegation. I did I got a load of content creators from different clubs to all give their view on the season ahead, and I think probably 18 out of 20 had Wolves going down. Obviously, the first couple of months until the Ipswich game, people were a bit concerned, but it was a tough start. Obviously, we collapsed against Ipswich, who actually have got promoted this year. The Man City game, going on to Monday Night Football, the run that we went on, the expectations rise. The people were really excited about this cup run, especially getting Coventry in the quarterfinals. We didn't really perform well that night. We nearly got through, didn't, and then it fell away. And obviously, from a psychological point of view as well as anything else, how do you see the season?
I think broadly you could split it into three. I've heard a lot of people doing that. I think that's probably fair. The tricky start, as you said, real kind of turning point was the Bellegarde red card against Luton, I think, because it made us go to a 5. We found that as our way of playing, and that really set us up for quite an extended period there, from the Man City game, as you said, all the way through really till the start of March, when the injuries really started kicking in. That's quite a big chunk of the season. So I don't think it's into 3 in terms of equal 3s. Quite a short bit at the start where we were up against it. A really good extended middle bit where we were excited again, which is a point I want to make in a moment. And then a tricky bit at the end. You asked earlier about aims of the season. Chelsea made some great points about that. But on this podcast, for a long time, we've talked about the lack of goals. I think it was 31 last season.
It weren't much more the year before, if anything, was over a long period, since Ralph, really.
Exactly. Going back to the Jimenez injury, COVID, we've struggled for goals, but we haven't really this season, especially in that bit around Chelsea away, Man United at home, Brentford away, Brentford at home in the Cup. We had a real purple patch. We've got 2 players who've scored double figures for goals. Neto's nearly got double figures for assists, despite missing half the season. So in terms of aims of scoring goals, we've definitely achieved that, and there's been some really entertaining games for us to watch this season. So that's been a real highlight for me. If I had to pick out one particular bit, it would probably be Chelsea away.
What is that would like you're going to pick out as your moment of the season, really? What are your top highlights?
Yeah, not just the result, 4-2. It could have been worse for Chelsea, actually. We went a goal down on that day, but we didn't just go and do like a smash and grab raid against one of these so-called big 6. We played them off the park, and we looked so dangerous every time we went forward that day. And it was the first time one of our players has scored a hat-trick.
It's the first time I think we've done the double over Chelsea for something like 30 odd years or something, and we've beaten them 3 times in a row now.
Exactly, and having a player score a hat-trick away from home in the Premier League.
And then he gets injured the
very next game against Brentford, he got injured.
Which is just our luck.
Yeah, that's a particular highlight for me.
And what would you give it as the season as a grading?
Yeah, good question. I think if you take C as an average, I think we're would be maybe a couple of little points above that, so maybe like a B minus.
A B minus, yeah.
I think if you asked the same question in the end of Feb when we were 7th or 8th and in the quarterfinals of the cup, you'd probably given it an A minus, at least. But the way that it's finished, I think B at a push, B minus probably.
Fantastic. Chelsea's a teacher, so you're probably used to giving grades and stuff like that.
Here comes an A.
What are you going to give yours as your grade for the season, and what was your moment of the season for you?
Oh, good question. I think, well, for the kids at home, they're on numbers now, Dave.
Oh, they on numbers?
I was the last year group to have the A star.
You don't do that anymore?
No, it's all numbers now. It scared me.
From what?
So 9's an A star.
Yeah.
8 is an A.
Yeah.
7's a B, and so on and so forth.
Do you get any minus numbers?
You get no. You can just get like a 1 or 2.
They don't do zeros.
No, they give you a 1 or 2 just to make you feel better. It's because a U sounds worse. But overall, I absolutely.
I never do that. Actually, yeah.
But I absolutely agree with everyone here. If you look at what we hoped for at the start of the season, up to, I think the turning point for me was the Brentford away game in the league and the Brighton FA Cup game at home that I was here with you for. The quality of our performance, I felt like we were literally scoring the first goal and we were sitting, watching the ball go back into our defence, and I didn't feel comfortable from that point. And I feel like whenever we had a game where it didn't go away, especially on the watch-alongs, you could feel that switch in the kind of psychology of the team reverting back to type. So midfield passed it back to defenders, passed it back to Sarr. Sarr distributed the ball poorly at times, and then going back, and obviously the lack of forwards in the midfield didn't help in that situation. But I think where we were so close to making the FA Cup semi-final, it was a fantastic performance, and I think whenever we're praising a team, the expectation of Wolves is very different than the expectation of Man City, the expectation of Luton. So I don't think it's fair to quantify a club's goals based on somebody else. And also, because you can't compare a 9 rating to a 7, your achievements with your own achievements. And I think Wolves, up to the Coventry game, had a fantastic season, and I'd give it a B plus A. But overall, I think C plus B minus is a good average because where we started at the beginning of the season, overall satisfied, and I think we should be happy that we're kind of unhappy about it. Like how we finished, we expected more, and I think that's good for our club to have high expectations. For my player of the season, I think an obvious one is Cunningham has been fantastic this season. We've had 12 goals in the league, and Grant obviously next to him, but I really think when Grant went to the Nation Cup, he really stepped to the game and relied on him a lot, especially next. But my game of the season, I think from my experience, I finally got to watch West Brom all day. And for my age bracket, I haven't really had any experience of watching that game, and I felt the occasion, and I've never felt so proud to beat a team, and I truly believed once we got past West Brom, anything was possible. And I remember all of us walking down to and you're going, oh, we've got Coventry this, and actually, we overstepped our mark, and we both went, actually, you know what, we've made ourselves look better than we deserve here, and we're going to have to bite our... And actually, it was a shame that we couldn't get through that game. But as a Wolves fan, the most proud I ever was watching us beat West Brom in the FA Cup. Yeah,
it was a good performance, that one. And I completely concur, because I remember the Brighton game, the last 16, the draw had been made, hadn't it, just before, so you knew you were going to think, we were thinking, God, we get past Brighton, we got Coventry at home. That was the perfect draw. And I remember saying on the same night, thinking after we got through Brighton, who basically scored earlier, we basically held on for 90 odd minutes, and it was the crowd that night. Actually, the Brighton game, the last 20 minutes got the team over the line that night. They were absolutely brilliant. And I remember afterwards, because we went and had a bit of a chat afterwards, and we were saying it's just a typical Wolves, we'll mess it up against Coventry. Because that's just how we roll, isn't it, mate?
Do you know what? I think sometimes there's nothing wrong with winning ugly. Now, we've seen some decent football this season in parts, and we've seen players expressing themselves. We've seen a lot more, as we've seen with the goals, a lot more attacking football. And I think with Coventry in the 87th minute when we 2-1 up.
Undeservedly so, really.
Yeah, but just keep it in their half. Oh. They can't hurt us in their half. Just keep it in their half. Put it in the corner. just boot it, play ugly, boot it in the stands, just.
Do you think we're too nice sometimes or too naive? Because similar game, the Man United game, we were 3-1 down and we played so well to get back to 3-3, and they were going for the winner, and they got caught almost the identical goal.
They're so focused on their jobs. I think that they just wanted to see out the game as they normally do. But I think in that particular game, when you're 3 minutes from Wembley, when you're 2-1 up, you just do anything to keep the ball out your half. Honestly, it's just ugly. That's how I'd have gone for it. Didn't happen that way. Coventry went at the other end, scored twice, and that's it, game over. We're all shell-shocked.
We couldn't believe it, could we?
Well, no, because my mate, I'm in his box down here, and he's booked his hotel. Luckily, it was on a cancellation. 2 minutes later, cancelled it. And it's the hope that kills you, isn't it? Because look, there was a chance of a semi-final, and yeah, just disappointing. And the other key turning point of the season for me was the injury to Dawson, which I'm sure we're going to come on to, because for me, Craig Dawson, he wasn't an extremely fashionable signing, but then we looked at the positive, which he brings a lot of experience, and then you wonder why really West Ham let him go, because he has been one of the most important signings in recent times, and I'll stick my neck out and say that. I think he's been fantastic. I do think Kelman doesn't look as good a player without
someone with
Dawson
experience
next to him, absolutely. And I think we've really, really missed Craig Dawson. But now he's a year older. I think he's the oldest member of the first team squad. So, that's your worry. But I think that's another thing. We have got a young squad. I think we just need a little bit of experience as well sometimes. We've looked better with experienced players in the team, in my opinion. So,
no, I think that's a fair point.
Nothing wrong with mixing it up.
No, I think that's a fair point. And obviously, we talk about the fall off. We have to take into account that we did lose Pedro Neto. You've lost Matheus Cunha. Wang came back from the Asia Trophy. I mean, there's a lot of thing about how Klinsmann trained the South Korean squad, and then obviously the week before the Coventry game, you lose Pedro Neto again, John Ritner-Bellegarde with his knee out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, we've just got Pablo Sarabia left. He's playing Nathan Fraser, and it probably played into Coventry's hand, because had we got those forward players, they can't play 10 or 15 yards further up the pitch because we've got the pace to hurt them. And they played a brilliant game. And you saw Coventry against, to be honest, against United. They were like, VAR robbed them of a place in the final. When they got a team's got nothing to lose, they're a dangerous animal.
I'm taking nothing from Coventry, by the way, because Coventry were the better team that day.
They did, and they deserved it.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably deserved to get through to the final.
Yeah.
But VAR, we know all about that as Wolves fans, and we will come to that. So yeah, your player of the season is Cunha. Player of the season for you and most improved, and anyone that's kind of flopped for you, Paul?
I voted for Mario for player of the year. It could have been Cunha, definitely. I've loved watching him play. Not just his goals, but he excites fans when he gets the ball. So direct, the way he dribbles. So he was my player of the year. Most improved, Ait-Nouri. He was on his way out 12 months ago. People wouldn't have really cared if we'd have moved him on. Lopetegui was well up for that.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at a player who, all the big teams in the league and in Europe, he could fit into one of those teams, no problem. And actually, he's improved that much that he's now got a couple of positions that he could play and do very well. I mean, we saw him play at times as like a right-sided forward.
Yeah.
I think he could be a very dangerous player in that position.
He's a bit like a Thierry Henry type of player that was... he wasn't an out-and-out forward, and he was made that, wasn't he? And because of his skill and stuff like that, I'm not saying he's going to be a Thierry Henry, but he's only 22, isn't he? Or 21, 22,
exactly.
Ryan Ait-Nouri.
He's got a very high ceiling, and I just also want to give, in terms of standout players, João Gomes a mention.
Oh.
When I say he could play for any team in Europe, I mean he could, for sure. He could play for Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City, no problem.
We
He's
saw
a full Brazilian international.
that move against Liverpool at the weekend where he was on the byline, really penned in, and he went past three, somehow got out the other end. I mean, he's very combative. He gives 150%.
Yeah.
He was the best player on the pitch when he made his debut for Brazil against England as well. And he's only very young, isn't he, as well?
Yeah. And full credit to the recruitment team for
and
identifying him.
And the social media campaign pre-João Gomes.
Getting him over the line. And I made this point after the Liverpool game. He's not just a defensive midfielder, a ball winner. He's a very good technical footballer as well. So I want to give him a mention. And just quickly to answer your last question about flop. I think I expected more from 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄 this season, and it's not his fault probably that he hasn't had the minutes to do that, but I think he came onto the scene, got an assist on his debut, didn't he, against Palace?
Great cross. Remember that.
Yeah, I still think there's a lot to come from him, but his progress has somewhat stalled this year, and again it's probably through no fault of his own because of the form of 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗄𝗄, predominantly there on the left, but I still think there's more to come from him next year.
Absolutely. Have you got any that you sort of ping out for like most improved as flop for you? I've been quite impressed personally. I like Tommy Doyle. Oh. I really like Tommy Doyle.
You've got your song, haven't you?
I've got a song. Yeah, we're just waiting for the time to release it. Hopefully, get more game time next year. Watch the space. But yeah, Tommy Doyle. Obviously, Matheus Nunes. You know when to go. Oh, by the way, Matheus, how's it going with Portugal, mate? Sorry. And anyway, moving on. And then we got Tommy Doyle in return. I wouldn't swap Tommy Doyle for Matheus Nunes.
No.
The biggest thing for me with Tommy Doyle is he pings the ball around. He really has got leadership quality. The game against Brentford in the Cup, when we were down to 10 men and losing 1-0, he single-handedly, before we got Neto eventually came on, dragged Wolves through the game. And he was like 3 men in midfield on his own. He scored the only goal we scored this year from outside the box. Yeah. In fact, Wolves are the only team not to have scored a goal from outside the box in the league, in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And when they were lining up for the free kick against Liverpool at the weekend, with about 5 minutes to go, I said, can you imagine if this goes in just before the end of the season? But it didn't, did it? Because it was a good save, actually. You reacted to that on the watch on. So Tommy Doyle deserves a really good credit. I think you're right about 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗄𝗄𝗧. What are your thoughts on Nelson Semedo?
I was about to say him for my most improved player.
Yeah.
Watching Nelson Semedo this year, on the watch along especially, I try and focus on certain players, certain part of the game, because I feel like you can just focus on where the ball is. And I've been so impressed with Semedo with how he tracks back, he finds his dribbles, he gives an opportunity to pass the ball. And when he was brought back more as a defender, you could see how tight the team was. There was no outlet, and when Semedo's got him pushing forward, he allows people like Cunha, Neto, that space to move around, and I think he's been a fantastic player. And to think about where he started, I think many people wouldn't have minded if he left or not, but now I think he's very important for the team. I think for midfield, I've been really impressed with the pairing of Lemina and Gomez. For me, it depends what players you like. Some people like very attacking players, very flair. I like aggressive players, I like physical players. And Gomez and Lemina, for me, have been a fantastic pairing all season. I don't like to look at them like in the last third of the season because I just haven't been there as physically as I could be. But both of them had like 240 tackles in the Premier League this season, and they've both scored goals. They've both pushed the team forward. For flop of the season, I'm not going to say flop. I'm going to say lack of leadership. Max Kilman.
Yeah.
I feel like for him, I think the lack of Dawson has proved that Kilman isn't ready to be a captain of a team yet. I'm not saying he can't be in the future, but I don't see him leading that line, whereas Dawson did. And I was one of those who went, oh, Dawson, he can come here, come there. When he was out, I finally saw how important he was. And I feel there's been a lack of goals as well from the defenders of Kilman. Like, we haven't had those goals.
Totti Gomez, the last one with that diving header, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like this season as well, even when you were saying we have to play ugly, we weren't getting those easy goals, and we've got some pretty tall defenders out there. We weren't getting them easy goals from free kicks or corners, and that kind of disappointed us, and I think Kilman could have done a bit more there for the team and demonstrate that leadership there by getting a couple of goals, telling the players what to do. But you know, characters and personalities maybe wasn't suited for that role. I think it should have been given to Lemina if he was on the pitch instead.
Very good point. I mean, on Kilman and stuff like that. I mean, we have got leaders on the pitch, and you see that with Lemina and Cunha and stuff like that, and what have you. I mean, Lemina's had a fantastic season, haven't they? You know, 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗏𝗄𝗃 has done rather recently. I mean, what's your thoughts? Just to finish off this section.
Yep. When 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗃...
Any thoughts on the young players coming through the academy, people?
When 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗃 first came into the team, I couldn't see how he was really going to improve. He was playing as a big part player. Would you have put him ahead of Lamina and Gomez? No, he realised he's had to fight for his place, and he's looked a much better player towards the end of the season. And that's because he's realised he's had to work hard, he's had to do something different, and he covers almost every blade of grass. So we're very lucky with the midfield, because obviously when you lose Neves and Moutinho, you think we're never going to replace it. You're Neves crying on the pitch, we're crying in the stands. And look, we've signed some players who we'd never heard of, and they've made a massive difference. I want to make a point about 𝗤𝗍𝗪. He's been a bit of a target really for the Boo Boys,
especially early doors.
Absolutely,
he was the adjustment from playing in a Barcelona team that probably didn't have to defend that much and in a different formation.
Yeah,
it's took time for him to adjust, hasn't it?
Even if you don't have to do much at Barcelona to get anywhere near their starting 11, you have to be one of the best players in the world. That's a fact. You do.
Yeah.
I know they're not quite the Barcelona of old. I understand that, but equally, they've got the pick of the players. And I think with 𝗤𝗍𝗪, we'll know that Wolves fans need a scapegoat sometimes, and this is why I'm going to come on to my flop, which is difficult, but I think 𝗤𝗍𝗪's a great player. Ain't Nori, I've got to echo Paul's points with that, where this was a player we could see something in him, a bit like Vinagre. He'd go forward, he'd do a few tricks, but then he'd lose it, and he seemed a bit lethargic, and I think that was down to his relationship with 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗧. That he looks like a £60 million player now. I tell you what, we could get some huge money for him, and there's going to be some big clubs swooping. He is a special player. Reminds me a bit like Gareth Bale. The way he goes forward, drops his shoulder, left-footed, can put the ball anywhere, can beat a player, so composed, can get out of a tight area, 3 players round him, give him the ball, he'll just make something of it. So for me, he has been definitely the most improved player, him and 𝗤𝗍𝗪. Flops-wise, I don't like to use the word, and I'm going to shock a few people in saying this, and I just think Pedro Neto. I think he is an incredibly unbelievable player. What frustrates me is his injury record, and that really does frustrate me. There was a stat the other day how many games he's missed in a Wolves shirt.
50% of the games, really. But he's been here for 5 years. He's only been fit 2.5.
Listen, I was at Luton away, to the dismay of all the supporters who say, "Oh, how did you get your ticket for Luton away?" I don't care, but he took that ball down the right-hand side, cut in, made that goal out of absolutely nothing. I think he scored a similar goal against someone else.
West Brom.
West Brom, sorry.
Yeah, when he did exactly the same.
Exactly the same movement, right? So he can create a goal out of anything. But his injury record just frustrates the life out of me, and that is why he's still at Wolves now. Because he has got the potential once again to be one of the best players in the Premier League without a shadow of a doubt. And if he didn't have that injury record, he could get into any team in the Premier League. A bit like Paul said about Joe Gomez. So, did expect. I think he's a good player, and I think he's been an unbelievable servant. But I think we've had the best years out of him in Matt Doherty. And we all remember when he used to link up down the right-hand side, and we all remember him getting forward and scoring goals, and I think he's just lost that yard of pace. But has he really been brought in to be such an attacking-minded right wing-back? Probably not.
No.
In terms of the young players, I've been very impressed with 𝗤𝗪𝗪. I think he's got a great touch. He brings other players into play well. I think he's very intelligent on the ball. I think he knows what he's going to do with it before he's got it. So he's one I've been very impressed with, and we've had to see more of the young players due to the squad size. So
absolutely. I mean, Paul, finishing this in the academy players. There's been a few of them that have had to be used this year. Nathan Fraser. We mentioned Chihuahua. I always say his name wrong.
𝗤𝗪𝗪. He's Mexican, yeah. 𝗤𝗪𝗪.
And there's a few that's come through, but they all don't quite seem to be, apart from maybe 𝗤𝗪𝗪, haven't quite seemed quite ready yet. Is that fair? That they're not really. That's why we struggled towards the end, because you can put a young one in for a game or two, but consistency is difficult.
Yeah, it's a big ask, isn't it, to come into a team when you're 17, 18 years of age into probably the strongest league in the world. They really did get thrown in at the deep end, and I think it was quite commendable, really, how they acquitted themselves. I mean, Nathan Fraser scored a really good goal here against Brentford in the cup.
Yeah.
Scored against Blackpool earlier on in the season. So it's probably benefited him in a strange way that he has had these experiences. Yes, he could probably do with a loan. That would probably be the
He
next
would have
step
gone out on loan in
him.
January had we been able to bring in another striker.
Yeah.
They kept him because, obviously, the situation.
And it was a shame that Leon 𝗤𝗪𝗪 got injured as well, because we saw some nice glimpses from him. I didn't go to Villa or Burnley, but against Coventry. He came on, didn't he? Made his debut.
He made a big difference when he came on.
Yeah, he looks lively, good movement. He's playing for England at under 18 as well, so I think he's a real prospect. And just to echo the words on 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄, first of all, worth saying that he hasn't come through our academy. We had him from Ipswich for less than £200,000, I think, in the summer. But I've seen some real positive signs from him. I think he's a really confident player. I think he can score goals from outside the box as well.
So that's something that we need.
Exactly, that's why I said it. I mean, he scored 2 against Man City in the 23s this year, one of which was from outside the box.
Absolute blinder.
I think he's very strong psychologically as well, having spoken with him myself for our podcast.
Look out for that coming on the channel soon.
Yeah, full
Drop that one in, Paul.
Yeah, full interview available soon on Always Wolves as well. But yeah, but also 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗍𝗄𝗏, who managed at 15 to be on the bench for a Premier League game. That's an incredible story.
And Chelsea knows him, don't you?
Yeah.
The pupil at your school.
Yeah, he was at my ex-school. I remember seeing him and he was like giving me a science class and I just saw his face and I was like, that's amazing.
I've heard he's terrible at science. He never gets to finish the class. He doesn't even know what a Bunsen burner is now.
Yeah, carry on, Paul.
Yeah, so I mean, some good signs, aren't there? I think that's the summary here. There's some good signs that the academy is delivering players that could potentially supplement our squad. Yes, they're not like starters in the first 11 yet, but can they be called upon sometimes to support when needed? Yes. Be interesting to see what happens with 1 or 2 loans, I think, for next season.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to come on to Gary O'Neill now. Obviously, we all know about what happened in the summer with 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄𝗏. The fact is that he told Matt Hobbs after the Celtic game in Dublin, he was leaving, he stayed on. Gary O'Neill was appointed. We thought it was all just a joke to start with. He's coming, obviously, not what you call a glamour appointment. A lot of the fan base very divided by him. I think he's won most of the fans over, especially after a difficult start. Then the Ipswich game, there's a meltdown, and then the Man City game comes in, where it was a masterclass against Man City. He goes on Monday Night Football on Sky, really insightful. It gave Wolves fans, that did, an opportunity to really see the man and see his personality. And I thought, oh, actually, and it's really, the thermometer started to swing, and then obviously it's gone from there. And obviously there is a criticism with Gary because he tailed off at the end of Bournemouth last season with a similar sort of run, and it's happened again. And people are saying, oh, is he a one-trick pony? Which we know he loves to chop and change. Your thoughts on Gary O'Neill as a whole, and if you're going to give him a grade, we'll call it the old system, A plus whatever, what would you give it?
I think for Gary O'Neill, I think he's done very well with the squad depth that he has and also the quality of players that he has. I feel like for his decision making, I do think that he sets up the team well. I like the way he interchanges the midfield between Gomez, Doyle and Lemina. Either one of them can work really well. I think he's played the forwards in their right positions and he's utilised defence the best he can. But a manager is only good as the tools that he's got. And he cannot go out and say, I want this, this and this. 1, we can't do it because FFP. And 2, the ball's not going to do that. So he's had to work within the means that he has. And also to compare Wolves with Bournemouth, where we're quite close together. If we've both got small squads, and we've both got squads that's relying on the youth, we're going to be getting the same outcome. The idea of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And Gary O'Neill, I watched on your video the other day, of him clearly telling the board of, I can do better if you give me the better players. And I think looking at another team this season, look at Pochettino with Chelsea, they've had a really young squad, say the maximum age is 24. Without Cole Palmer, where would they be this season? And if you look at Wolves, if they just had a couple more quality players and experienced players, maybe we could have just got over the line against Coventry. Maybe we could have finished better in the league. But for Gary O'Neill overall, I feel that considering he came in 3 days into the season, I think he's managed the team well. I think he's got a good relationship with the team. I do think he's made a good atmosphere in the crowd. I think everyone's supporting Gary O'Neill. But he is only as good as his support system is. And I think if he is able to sign some players next season, the test will be his second season, his third season. Do we see progression? Because to me, if we only go up one way in the league, if we keep making little adjustments and increasements, then that's good enough for success for us. And I feel like he deserves time to build a team around him that suits him, because he came into a team that wasn't his. He didn't pick the players.
He hasn't had a pre-season.
No,
and
he has had a pre-season. He couldn't establish. He had to establish his way of playing, establish his expectations
on the
fly, and that's not easy to do. So I feel like people questioning the end of the year based on from Newcastle onwards.
And with the
you can't. I'm sorry. People go, oh yeah, but we lost players. You don't lose 6 forwards. That's not normal. He's done the best he can with the tools he's had, and he's raised important points about we need more support from the board. And I feel like, considering the situation he is in, I think he's done very well this season.
What grade do you give him?
I would give him, for overall, considering when he came in, I'd give him a B-. I think he's done a good job. If we're in the same position as we are next season and we've had some money put into the team, then maybe we can consider, is it worse or is it better?
Fantastic. Well, we're going to have some quick thoughts from Jace and Paul, maybe on the psychology side from Gary O'Neill, and then we're going to move on. Before we get to the part 3, which is the look ahead to next season, we've got all the stuff in the middle, such about the engagement with the club, the VAR and stuff. But let's finish off the first section. Gary O'Neill, give us your assessment, end of year assessment.
So years ago, they used to be called football managers, and they would pick their players and they'd put it to the board, and it's a little bit different now in terms of managers don't make the decisions they used to, hence the reason they're called head coaches, because they concentrate more not on so much building the team, because there's a team behind them to do that. And this is why I want to say that one of the most important cogs in that wheel has been 𝗵𝗶𝗁.
Absolutely.
And as we've seen with our South American scouting network, the players that we've brought in, for me, Gary O'Neill, with the tools, as Chelsea very eloquently put, has done a really good job, in my opinion. You can't blame him for it petering off as it did. It's very difficult as well to start putting a comparable against Bournemouth. That you're quite right as well, Dave, on that football show, on the Sky football show on that Monday night. Wow. I think he wowed us all, and this is one of the things he did with
It was
𝗵𝗶𝗁.
a real surprise how he came across.
It was, but
the personality as well.
You can tell he's a student of the game. He wants to learn. You can see him in the dugout when he's got his iPad and he's constantly working, and you can tell he lives, breathes, and eats it. There's no ego to him neither, and that's important. I think to 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗧 to a degree there was a bit of an ego, and you carry that around and you start making decisions which maybe aren't for the good of the club. With Gary O'Neill, I think he's a real club man. He's always talking about we. For me, it's a solid B this season. I've been really, really impressed with him. He's still got his doubters, and they've crept in, because as soon as people start talking Europe, everyone pricks their ears up, gets the passports out. We've got to be realistic. That word should have never, ever, ever have been spoken about. And I think that's, the one thing about expectations. Then it adds a little bit of pressure, and he didn't need that. And so I think he's had a very good season. And you look at most of the successful clubs and managers, they're given time. Chelsea don't give their managers time.
Well, Potter's gone as well.
Not you, Chelsea. Chelsea don't give the managers time. United very rarely give managers time. I'm not putting us in that bracket, but you have got to give your managers time. We have got to judge Gary O'Neill, on 2 or 3 seasons, and it's no good saying, we haven't got the money to spend. I understand that, but he knows the landscape with it. He knows we've got to sell to buy. We've got enough players to go out so we can make a difference. We just need a bigger squad. And, if it means selling some of the players that I'm going to talk about later, 4 or 5, which can net us some decent money, then he needs to go out and strengthen his squad. Him and 𝗵𝗶𝗁 are key to the future for me.
Grading for you?
B.
A B. I'm going to go with a B as well, because I actually think, like you say, in the circumstances of the situation, I don't think he could have done much better with everything he's had to deal with. I mean, one of his press conference, he actually said that he does all this planning and thing, and then he's having to do all this planning and think, how can I fix this problem, because I haven't got these players. Yep. And he sent out many, many messages during the last sort of third of the season regarding he needs help with the squad depth and stuff, and I think that message has been coming through. Also, he sent the message out there, hasn't he? Said if a player doesn't want to be here, or they ain't, enthused to be playing for this great club, I don't want them. He wants people.
And that's what we want to hear as fans.
It is. So he said in all the right things. He's coming across. Gary O'Neill hasn't had a chance to have a proper pre-season with Bournemouth. I know he knew the squad. Of course, he stepped up. He did there. He's come in. He hasn't had a proper pre-season with Wolves. Okay, it's going to be a bit disrupted because of the Euros, but he hasn't really been able to make a team his own yet, so it's really interesting. I'm going to give him a B. How do you think Gary O'Neill's going to be feeling, you know, in his head after this season with everything that it's got to do with, because we've talked about people worrying about him going to be poached by Liverpool, going to the England job, you know, and all of that, and then the recent run, people saying, oh, he's not got any ideas and stuff like that. I think he needs a new contract, better contract. I think he's earned it. Wolves need to show him that they believe in him by doing that. Where do you think Gary O'Neill's at in his head?
I think he's probably in a pretty good place, given that he's laid some good foundations here now to move on with next season. And while you were all speaking, I've made 4 quick points, which I'll make very quickly, starting from like bad through to neutral to good. So the weakness, if you like, the thing I think we could improve on, and it's really kind of hurt us in the last 10 games of the season, playing out from the back. We've been our own worst enemy in numerous games. I can think Palace, Brentford. We couldn't get out of our own half against Bournemouth here, Brighton, and even though we won that day here.
That was back to Alamo, wasn't it? That was the backs of the Wolves.
He's either got to find a way of doing that better or do something different, because it's hurt us a few times. So that's my bad. My neutral is coming back to one of your points that you said about fading away. If you look at our whole kind of 6 seasons in the Premier League, when have we finished the season strongly? It just seems to be something that is an issue for us.
The year that we were, I mean, with the pandemic, for example, when we've just beaten Tottenham and the curtain did come down, okay, there was a suspension, but we were going great guns then, and obviously we faded away that year as well. Yeah,
so I think that's probably to do with squad depth. So the fading away thing seems to be a bit of a trend here, not just for him as a manager. That's what I'm saying here. Then moving on to the positive, I think the way that he's spoken in the media is very good. He's represented our club well. And that's been important given that he's had so many difficult things to comment on. We'll come to those in a bit, I'm sure, but you know what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
Media speaking, I wrote down in my notes, I think he's been very professional, respectful. He's come across very well. And that's an important part of the job when you're representing a club on a global level, as he is. And my biggest kind of strength is this idea of togetherness. You asked for a psychological point, and here's one. And I don't just mean between the fans and the players, but between the players themselves. He said in a recent press conference it should mean something to wear this club shirt. And even when we haven't been winning, our players are still running themselves into the ground because they want to do it for each other and for him.
An example of that would be Liverpool at the weekend. We could have easily have got upset. I mean, we were all probably thinking, oh my God, down to 10 men, 2-0 down 10 minutes later. And actually, we had chances in the second half. Ait-Nouri probably should have shot instead of passed. Doherty was literally a fraction offside. It was a great header. And I thought we did really, really well in the second half. But they didn't down tools. They could have done and collapsed. And they kept fighting. And we've seen that even when the performances haven't been so good, they have kept the effort up, I think.
Yeah, that's a good example. Another one is the Fulham game here, where we had 2 serious injuries in the first half.
Somehow
ended up with Mario and Ait-Nouri up front, and we still found a way to win. But yeah, the togetherness is something that I think it doesn't just happen, right? People don't suddenly gel from nowhere. It has to be set up deliberately. So the language that he uses, the things that him and his staff must be doing around the club must be deliberately bringing players together, and when that happens, it increases effort on the pitch.
And when Mario Lemina sadly lost his father, you could see that was a classic example of the players coming together as one for Mario, and once again testament to how Gary's brought them all together.
Yeah, it was like a real family feel, wasn't it? Through that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made the point about Dawson as well earlier. Like, you look at the goals conceded in the last thing, Dawson not being there, obviously he's had the operation.
He's also a massive attacking threat, Dave.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen he's up top corners. He's a real threat. You know, he scored quite a few goals for West Ham. He scored some goals early doors for us as well with his head. So I think we've missed him in both areas of the pitch. Personally,
I think you're right. Now, are the club, do you feel, are engaged with the fans? This was something that was put on the agenda. Is there a general football apathy. When you say engage with the fans, like in terms of the club engage with the fans, how do you feel about that connection at the moment?
Oh, I think it's brilliant generally? Because the season ticket prices have come out today. I know them. No, listen. I think it's been a lot better, and I think, and I maintain when I keep saying this, everything that happens on the pitch dictates what goes on off it. If we're losing every week, everyone moans about the pies, everyone moans about this, everyone moans about that, everyone moans about the content they bring out, everyone moans about the kit, everyone moans about the stands, everyone moans about the bollards. Because they're not painted the right colour or they're not painted. Start winning on there. We forgot about the bollards. We're not bothered if the pies are cold. We're not bothered if the bovrils too hot. But that's a fact. It's a fact, and I think it's been in part, and like Paul said earlier, there was a prolonged period in the middle where we've seen a lot of good football, and we've beat some top teams, and there's been some games that we will remember. I think VAR has killed a lot of enjoyment for people, whereby, say about the apathy.
We might as well go on to VAR.
Well, you say about the apathy. I mean, I don't know where to start with VAR. All I know is, in my opinion, Wolves, we've pioneered a lot, haven't we? Floodlit football, European football, and trying to pioneer an end to this, and all these clubs that have gone, now we want to keep VAR, be the ones moaning about it next season. And we've been, yes, we can blame the season petered out, but we've lost that many points through VAR. I know. Does it balance itself out at the end of the season? Is it the same for all clubs?
Well, to be fair, everyone keeps saying, it balances itself out, but it doesn't do it for us.
No, it clearly doesn't, and people are saying how many points. I mean, it's been 17 points bandied around. I don't know, I don't look at that. But the enjoyment, so now when we score, we can't cheer straight away. It's just changed the game monumentally. Which it's led so many people who I know on social media falling out of love with the game. And they're not falling out of love with Wolves, they're not falling out of love with this club, they're falling out of love with the game of football, and it's changed it massively, and it is a changing game, and it will continue to be a changing game, and it's almost like we've got to accept that this is football moving forward, which is a really sad state of affairs. Is it really the fans' game anymore? I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes to a lot about the VAR, is about the apathy, especially within the stadium and what's going on. Paul, then Chelsea, come to you first on this, Paul. Because thoughts on the refereeing standards, thoughts on VAR, should it be axed? If it's not axed, what improvements would you like to see? And then same question to you, Chelsea.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing to say is I think it's affected the confidence and quality of the decision making on the pitch at the time. I think some referees are maybe a bit reticent to give a decision when they know that someone else is going to watch it and tell them what to do anyway. So it's taken their accountability and responsibility away from them, which I don't think is a good thing. I wanted to bring up two games in particular that really kind of took a piece of my soul away. The first one was not even one of ours, Coventry against Man United.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier. Yeah,
already been mentioned, and to me, the jubilation in the stands when that goes in, 3-0 down.
We're all watching it as well when that happens.
We're all probably quite happy ourselves, even though they knocked us out. And then for it to be curtailed because somebody's toenails offside.
And it just happens to be Man United.
Does everybody else cut their toenails more now before they play football? Mine used to be like 𝗲𝗲𝗰𝗍𝗄𝗎𝗍. They used to be that long, but I cut them now. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And you haven't painted, don't you? Go down and haven't painted pretty colours as well.
I beg your pardon. I'll mention the Vaseline in a minute. So let's tell Dave what happened. So I come in and Dave had like this bit of tissue here and there was a bit of blood, and I said, "What, you done cut yourself shaving?" And then next thing you know, he says to the producer, he went, "Emma, where's the Vaseline?" It's a family show, Dave. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, well, you do paint your nails, don't you? Very nice colours.
Carry on.
Gold and black.
Yeah, so that was the first game. The second game was the Bournemouth game. So 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗄𝗎 scored that really good header at the far post from Semedo's cross.
What a header.
And somehow, there's nobody in the stand or on the pitch, nobody that thinks, oh, hang on a minute, we better not celebrate this.
For both sides as well.
Yeah. But lo and behold, they found somewhere 4 or 5 seconds before that Cunha's arm might have brushed a Bournemouth player, that means we've got. And to me, I went home that day thinking, like, you know, I just felt really sad that the game had changed in this way.
And sorry to interrupt, not one person in the stands noticed it, and it's only because they rewound it 52 times, they've seen it from 15 different angles, that they found an excuse not to give a goal, and it's like they're trying to find excuses not to give goals, and that just changes it beyond recognition for me. It's awful. And
this is why people are like, I mean, you all saw my dad coming out and saying it ain't football anymore. I don't want to come again, like his 87 been coming since the 50s. And there's a lot of people as well, you know, that are actually considering, regardless of what happens with the season ticket prices, they don't want to come because of the.
So that example, which is a great example, when Cunha brushed his arm, the defender never ever even appealed it.
I just carried on.
And that's the thing. If the defender makes an absolute meal of it and he's writhing around, I get it. But it's just that they've seen.
Chelsea, how do you feel about it? Because obviously you've been to a few games.
I'm going, I've had enough.
But Chelsea just obviously does all the watch-alongs for us, and I mean, I remember that. Can't remember what the game. It was one of the early games where we scored, and you're there. It's almost mirroring me on my vlogs, and you're like so excited, and then you just
the Max Kilman goal and the subjective VAR,
and you just see your face go from complete joy, and then it just goes through what. And then you just disbelief at the end, and you're like, I can't believe. But in the space of 60 seconds.
With the watch long, I think I always, before we even say, you always go for the run of the mill and be respectful and all these. But the first one I go is, don't shout goal, because we can't trust that it is one.
Anyway.
And I feel like, as fans, you're now questioning your knowledge of the game. And the same with referees, of like, you are the person off the pitch, you make the decisions, that is your job, you're getting paid for it. If I can't trust you to do your job on the pitch, in any line of work, you'd be fired. Do your job. Also, I hate the fact with VAR that they slow everything down to the slowest possible. It was the one with the Liverpool game with his studs up. That slow motion looked like the worst tackle I've ever seen. But actually, in the moment, he was going for the ball, his eyes were on the ball. And guess what, people? It's a contact sport. Maybe. But it's and also for me, the subjective VAR is unacceptable.
Yeah.
If they want to make football more scientific, they say this is that, then you have to remove subjective VAR, because subjective VAR leads to what team do you not mind winning? What do you believe is fair? Because I never believe that it evens out, and it's quite obvious which teams are given the better choices based on where you are. And the fact that teams like Man United, Liverpool refuse to have TV screens, I wonder why. There's no excuse for that.
I'm completely with you. A team comes up from the Championship, they've got to have all the media suite done, they've got all these things to conform, and then you've got two of the biggest clubs in the country, Liverpool and Man United, who quite have got the space if they wanted to have you know, you went to Liverpool Anfield. I was looking at that, I was thinking they could easily put a nice little screen there, and they should be made to do.
They're bigger than the league, aren't they? They believe they're bigger than everybody else, and they have the right to win games. They have the right to be the biggest clubs in the world.
I wish they'd have started that Super League, you know, and just got rid of them all, binned them off.
I just love how they contemplate what the Super League Cup is, because Chelsea aren't in the top four, so they shouldn't qualify.
And do you notice as well, the weekend, the cameras were there to review the 𝗤𝗏𝗪 decision, whereas in that cup game, it disappeared.
Yeah.
When we from the
couldn't have Klopp losing his last game, could we?
No. I mean, it probably was a red card in all fairness. I mean, we've had some bad ones. Probably an orange. I don't think he was completely out of control. No. But by the letter of the law,
when you slow it down,
would it have been given the other way around?
Yeah. And I think the last thing I want to mention is, do I believe VAR is going to be absolutely not. I don't think we're going to get enough people to support it. And also every year certain clubs get influenced by it. The only thing that I think would help it is, and I've mentioned it before in the watch-alongs and extra time, and people have their own views of what you want to hear from a referee. But I do believe in those VAR decisions, we should hear what they are saying, to give them accountability on both ends, because most people get angry and annoyed when they can't understand what is going on and they feel like it's a secret. It's like all of us are waiting around the stands and the guy's going to come and go, it's a VAR decision. It's like, yay, it's happening. It's like, but we've paid to come here. This is our team. You need to tell me with your mouth why
Yeah.
it's a VAR decision. And I believe referees, they are very shielded and protected. If managers have to do a press conference straight after, if football players have to do a conference after, they must do a review of their performance if you want to have accountability. But that won't happen because I know fans are very emotional and they can be too harsh, I get that. So I'd like to hear the decisions on VAR decisions on the day so we can hear them, and then maybe as fans we can still be annoyed by it, but at least we can understand it. I think
What's going on? Do you think that also what they see on the refs seeing on the screen should be displayed on the screens as well?
Absolutely.
So you can
I think that's
on.
one thing, because with the refs coming out,
slow down.
With the refs coming out, do we want to give them too much time? Do we want to give them other reasons to make excuses? Do we want to give them too much spotlight? It's not about the refs, is it? In terms of...
Well, we want to know, how many times in the stadium we just don't know what's going on?
Exactly. I think that's a great idea with the screens, definitely. But how can X amount of people at Stockley Park and the referee all sit down and watch these videos and still get the decision wrong?
It takes like 3 or 4 minutes for a clear and obvious error.
Yeah, and VAR was set up so we didn't have this. But we're getting it, and then stats come out, but they get 96% of the decisions right now. Do they?
You've got to admire what Wolves have done, really. I mean, some people say, we'll get done even a bit worse next year because we've dared
to say anything. Any worse?
Well, exactly. But, it has created a conversation and a debate, and I think part of what Wolves are trying to achieve, if it grows, it disappears. And they're saying that, obviously, it was brought up as a fans advisory board. We've talked about it on our shows, various other shows have talked about it, fans have been talking about it. Obviously Jeff's heard it in the stadium when they had the Premier League chief, I think, at a recent game, and they were singing "This is not football anymore" and stuff like that. That message has got to come, but whether Wolves believe that it can get overturned or whether they're trying to create a debate to try and make it much better as a means, because it's gone, when Wolves announced it was like all the media were like, "Oh my God,"
And then there was some lazy journalism slating Wolves for it. The same people that constantly slate VAR every week and say it doesn't work. Wolves have had the balls to come out and do something about it and just
create
say,
a debate.
Absolutely.
But the boards and the head of all the clubs surely have got to be listening to their fans and hopefully taking that back. I mean, we have supposedly, Paul, having a semi-automated offside. I thought that did work quite well in the World Cup. Mm-hmm. A lot better than someone trying to draw these bloody imaginary lines on. It was like, you had the people and you could see. It was a lot better. And I also, agree with Chelsea, really, when you're on about 3 or 4 minutes worth of for clear and obvious. I think there should be a time limit of maybe 45 seconds, 60 seconds max.
Yeah.
If they can't make a decision, whether it's clear and obvious after 60 seconds, that's your cut-off point, gone.
Absolutely.
You carry on with the game. Because if you're taking 3 or 4 minutes, it
clear
obviously isn't clear and obvious, is it? What's your thoughts on that?
I think you make a good point. A couple of interesting, you can decide if it's interesting or not, but a couple of points that I've got quickly is I've got quite a few friends in Portugal, and there we talk about football a lot, and they're not saying it's a problem over there. So maybe it is working in other places, and maybe it's something to do with our systems and our operators. I think
Well, a lot of people said it's not the VAR, it's the people that are using it that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, standing here right now, if it went tomorrow, I wouldn't be sad at all. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that it seems to be doing better in other countries in Europe.
But Sweden got rid of it though, didn't they?
They did. But one thing that I think needs to be part of this conversation, I mean, we've put forward this motion to have VAR scrapped, but it shouldn't just be about what the clubs want, it should be about what the fans want and what the players want as well. I've seen 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄𝗧 speak out about playing in the Championship this season with Leicester, and he's not missed VAR at all. So I think if they're going to make a decision, it's not just based on what the club's opinions and desires are. You've got to include, because we had this line all through COVID, didn't we? Football's for the fans.
Yeah.
Well, show us then that it is, and include us in this conversation.
Because at the end of the day, I know that the Premier League, especially, is the biggest league in the world. It's watched globally everywhere you go in the world. The countries and stuff like that. But the lifeblood of the game is your match-going fans that create the atmosphere. And if you kill that atmosphere, or it becomes like you know, beige, because you've gone about the Coventry thing with, you know, and you kill that emotion, that joy, for someone that's 200 miles away because, like you say, you painted toenails offside or something like that. It's just killing it. And if they do keep it, they've got to make the process much quicker, more transparent, like what you say. But I wouldn't mind them being able to hear those conversations. They're going about, well, people swear or whatever. The swearing goes on.
So hang on, you know, if you're a 12, 13-year-old kid now, this is all you know, isn't it? It's awful.
Yeah.
They're hearing it on social media way before anyway. And it's all about atmosphere. It's really sad when fans go, oh, we can't make a difference. The livelihood of football is people watching the game. If we stop going, we stop paying, we stop buying shirts, they will listen because they don't care about how you feel, they care about your pockets. And if everyone stopped watching, they would have to. But it's whether fans are willing to do it, because most people go to work Monday to Friday, and that football club on the weekend is that one bit of joy that they have. And you know what?
All pain.
VAR, but pain's good. Pain's good, sadness is good, happiness is good. VAR will probably just be, you know what, but I still get to see my team, and I have a community and a togetherness around me, and a lot of people won't let that go. But if the whole club, the whole country stuck together and said, no, it would work. We've had revolutions in the world. It can happen. It's whether we...
Well, the Super League's a typical example on that. Fan power, got rid of that pretty quickly. You know, I mean, hopefully the fan power of Wolves and Molineux and various podcasts and, you know, the Trust have been pushing on this as well, and like the fans in the stadium, what they're singing, every time there's a VAR call, they're singing that, you know, the beep beep VAR, and it's not football or football, you know, music, but you know what I mean. The fans have made their voice heard. We've had the protests and stuff like that, so Wolves have done something about it, and you've got to give them credit, whether you're pro Jeff or Fosun or whatever they're doing, or you're not. You have to give the club credit for that. And
absolutely.
Obviously, we'll see what happens. Personally, I think, like all of us, I think it'll probably get debated. If it doesn't go, hopefully it improves the process, and some of these ideas, they actually look and think, this is what the fans want, to the clarity and the communication and the understanding and the speed and the less faff, so we can actually enjoy the moment. Then if that is the middle ground and it gets better, then we'll be judging it next season again, won't we? Right, we're going to look ahead now to the summer.
Yeah.
We're going to look ahead through to next season. Jason, I know you've made a few notes on this. What does success, in this bit we're going to be looking at, what does success look like next season? Outgoings, who would we sell? Who should we keep? Definitely keep. Where do we need to strengthen? Let's go with you first.
I think success this coming season, so we've already said that, you know, we just took 17th at the start, 16th, 17th, and I think this season coming, we've got to be realistic. We do want to see improvements, of course we do, but I think anywhere 12th or above, and that's not me accepting mediocre football, but I just think, you know, it's got to be a process. Fosun excited us all when they took over the club. They've realised it's, you know, made the decision.
We're going to win the Premier League within 10 years.
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous, dangerous comments which people don't forget. But I think we've got to look at a building process now. I think we've got to be patient with Gary O'Neill. We've definitely got to get a bigger squad. We've got to, you know, look at each thing individually, you know, bigger squad, see who the outgoing players are to bring that money in. You know, I'm not happy when we sign players 30-40 million pounds.
Well, you look, I mean, some of them have worked, Kuna, Semedo, but then you look at the likes of 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄𝗧, you look at like how we got our pants pulled down to Fabio Silva. You know, do you know what I mean? Some of the best boys that we had, Moutinho, 5 million.
Yeah.
You know, Tommy Doyle, 4.3 million. You know, Joe Gomez. You know, that 5 to 15 to 20 million mark.
Yeah.
You know, you can get some good. How much was Lemina?
9.
And I think that's where we're shopping. You know, we're not going to be shopping in Waitrose anymore, are we? We're still going to be in the bargain aisles at Morrison's. But look at the players we've got. We've got some really good players that we foraged, that we found, the scouting network, which is as good as it's ever been, without the heavily reliance on Mendes that we've obviously once again suffered from, and
that's not to say they won't use
no.
Mendes, but they're not going to be putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there was a bit of reliance there. But now, and we've had some brilliant players. But I think it's
a roundabout, isn't it? What you get on the one, you give on the other.
Absolutely. I think moving forward, anywhere 12th or above next season would be a huge success, in my opinion. I think the areas where we need to strengthen is, I think the midfield. We've got a bit of competition for places. So you've got 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏, Lamine and Gomez. Are we going to keep both Semedo and 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏? I don't know, because
Semedo's got 1 year left of his contract.
He has, but that means then he's got a value.
He has. I do think, from what Gary O'Neill said, he really wants to keep Semedo if he can. So they'll obviously offer him a deal. It's whether Semedo goes,
Are we going to get an unbelievable offer on 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏? But what I'm saying is they're not the areas I'm worried about. The wing backs, the centre midfield. My worry is the centre of defence, and obviously the striker. I know we say it now, we've never ever Cunha, yes, but as an out and out number 9, we've never replaced Raul Jimenez, and before that we never really replaced Jota. So I think for me, there's talk of Shadham's coming in. I do think a bit of experience will help, at the top half of the pitch.
Che Adams, what's your take on him? Because obviously it's not done yet. He's had a contract with Southampton. He's on a free. He'll obviously be given higher wages than what he's on there.
Yes.
Some people go, oh, Che Adams, but he's 27 for me.
Yeah.
He's had 4 years experience in the Premier League when he was younger. He scored 17 goals this season and a load of assists. Yeah. He's on a free.
Yeah.
He's a number 9.
Yeah.
He might not be the main man, but we could have done with him this year.
Well, a player like Che Adams...
He's 27 as well, isn't he?
Yeah, a player like Che Adams coming in, it's going to bolster the ranks, isn't it? Because we've had to rely, and this is no disrespect, but we've had to rely on some really young players, and then as supporters, we've expected too much of them, so then the pressure's on their shoulders, and they're not, in Paul's word, that the performance is going to be affected. These are young lads that have been chucked into the biggest and hardest league in the world, so I think we do need some experience. I do think we need as well another centre half. One player that does nerve me sometimes, and I think he's been very, very good, but he nerves me because he's so one-footed, is Totti Gomez.
Yeah.
So
900,000.
Yeah, listen,
it's great value for 900,000.
Unbelievable value. I'm not slating the lad by any stretch, but I just think he's very, very, very one-footed for me. So I just think we need a bit of versatility at the back. Someone made a great point about Santiago Bueno. They can't work out whether he's a world beater or he's rubbish, because at the end of the match, he seems to, he's just doing his job, I suppose.
Consistency.
Yeah. So
he's only young as well, isn't he? How old Santiago Bueno?
Tempted to say 24.
He's only young as well, isn't he? He's got very young defence we got, because most central defenders, they've started to reach their peak, that 27, 28, 29.
I think he's getting better and better. So I'd like to see, not a 34-year-old centre-half coming, but I'd like to see maybe a late 20s, early 30s. What?
Harry Maguire.
No way. I want to see someone. I do want to see an experienced centre half come in who can lead the line.
What about Conor Cody?
Well, I'll just get slated on here. I never say Conor Cody, but probably not now, Dave. But once again, he did.
Because Gary O'Neill ultimately
was great.
Gary O'Neill ultimately wants to play a back four, doesn't he? That's his preferred.
Well, we can't sign Conor Cody, then, can we?
I'm not saying, but his preferred style. He started with the back four, and that's what he wants. Jesús Mosquera, Villarreal, what's your take on him? Apparently they've gone. I saw that Jem had gone over on her Instagram. I think I think they've gone over to interview him. It'd be an interesting interview.
The purpose of the loan system is for players to go out and get experience and become better players, and that's happened in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
And I think Mosquera could be, one way. Absolutely. And I think the players that need to go out on loan are the players that do desperately need that experience. And I think Mosquera's got that experience now, so I think he's one we should look at bringing back. Yeah. Especially, not just for numbers, but his loan spell's gone very well. Yeah. So they've got to make a decision. I've just had a look online how many players we have got out on loan. there is, and we've had a threadbare
I
squad.
think Gary O'Neill says, I can't see no a club that's got so many players out on loan, and there probably would have been more. And some people would say, well, they should be here. Well, we've loaned them out.
There should be, but obviously there's certain players who you just wouldn't have near the squad. There's certain players who you just want to get out the club because A, they've got a material value, financial value, or you just don't want them in the club. You know, and Gary O'Neill knows who they are. So,
what's your thoughts on 𝗤𝗲𝗰𝗸𝗀 coming back? And this is to all of your
see,
athletes.
𝗤𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗀 for me is a bit like 𝗧𝗶𝗰𝗸𝗀, and in a fashion, 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗀 Troy. These are luxury players. These aren't players who can, you know, fit in. These are players who they're flair players, and you know, like old number 10s almost, where they float around at the edge of the box. I don't think we've got a team who can carry any players. I think 𝗧𝗶𝗰𝗀𝗀 is an unbelievable talent. I think 𝗤𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗀𝗀 is an unbelievable talent. But to put them in at the space instead of a really hard-working, dexterous player who gives more to the team than possibly they can, and they can win a game out of nothing. But I think over 90 minutes, I think there's players who we need in the side more, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've put it across as, you know. But, have we got a space for a flair player at the minute? I don't think we have.
Okay, Paul, to you next. What's success look like next season? What player can we not sell? And how would you like us to strengthen?
Okay. So, I don't think we can properly comment on this until we see what business happens.
The situation with Wolves, last year they had to get rid of about 100 million. This year they're saying they don't have to sell anyone, but they haven't got to sell to balance the books, because if they did no business at all, the books are balanced. But they do need to, as Gary said, raise revenue to be able to strengthen the squad. But there are players out on loan we could get money for, but there's also rumours about Kilman, we've talked about that, you know, Pedro Neto, Ryan Ait-Nouri, Kuna, Joe Gomez. Which are the ones that you would, out of them as well, you would say are absolutely key, we have to keep?
Yeah.
Semedo's another one.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think just to finish off on the previous one there about what does success look like, in my notes down here, I just wrote down our last 4 finishing positions: 13th, 10th, 13th, 14th.
And before that it was 7th and 7th, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the point is, it's been at least 4 years now since we
finished in the top half.
Yeah, exactly. We've got 46 points, didn't we, this season?
41 last year.
So maybe you would say success is 50 plus, but it depends. It keeps coming back to this. It depends on the summer, doesn't it? If we have a really difficult summer where we lose more players than we think, or we don't get the ones in that we want, then we could be looking at a situation where some people are saying, well, 17th is a result. I don't think it will be that. I don't think it will be that. So, 50 points and, trying to break into the top 10. But to answer your next question about who we should keep, I think, first of all, it's good to have the options and it's an indication, actually, of what a good season we might have had in some ways, that we've got quite a few players that could bring in some money for us that would be coveted by other teams. I think the rules are changing in terms of profit and sustainability.
The year after next year. So it's going to be about 70. I think if you're in the Champions League, it's going to be 70%.
Yeah.
And if you're not in Europe, it's 85% of your turnover.
Yeah. And what that leads me to say is that they probably will be thinking about wage bill as much as transfer fees. Yeah. We know that 𝗧𝗶𝗰𝗀𝗀𝗀's on big wages because he's come from PSG. We know Semedo's on big wages. So are they going to take the approach where they're looking at trimming the wage bill rather than trying to get the big fees in?
Well, Wolves are already one of the lowest wage. If you look in the wage table, I think we're about 16th.
We are, we are. I mean, another thing to say as well, the market's not going to be a seller's market this summer. Look at January, nobody did any business, pretty much.
Yeah,
other teams are in the same boat as us in terms of
FFP, profit and sustainability.
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking about Newcastle and they've got all that money through the PIF, but because of their turnover, I think their manager has said they're probably going to have to sell Villa. I know they're going to Champions League, but
Leicester,
there's a lot of teams that are going to be going through a little bit of the pain that we did, they might have to make a profit. We don't have to make a profit this year.
No.
We don't have to make a loss, but there are teams that are going to have to make a profit.
Man City are fine though, aren't they? They can just sign anyone for like £100 million. It
can't wait.
To Man City.
No disrespect to Man City fans or anything, but like I can't wait until
they get relegated.
The Roosters come home to roost on that one, because I think most fans, unless you're a Manchester City fan, are going to be like want to see what's going to happen. You've seen what's happened to Everton and Forest, rightly, but they've had their points deduction. If you're an Everton or a Forest fan and City don't get done in big way, they're going to be up in arms about. Well, again, you've still got to wait another year to 18 months for that to come through. But you're right, they seem to be able to get away with it. Chelsea under Bowley, what is it, £1 billion they've spent somehow. They had, what is it, animation or whatever they call it?
Amortisation.
Amortisation.
The only thing they've had is transfer bans, but also the government taking away their original owner, so they've just put them in the crap anyway, because they're not going to go anywhere at all, are they? They're only signed 24-year-olds or under.
That's right.
So they're not going to go anywhere with that policy. They're going to have young players with no older talent.
Yeah, and they've just got rid of another manager because Poch's just left as well, hasn't he?
I wonder if it's mutual agreement or he's decided to leave himself.
You know, I reckon that 𝗣𝗲𝗀𝗃𝗍 will go into Chelsea. It wouldn't surprise me.
I'll be Lampard's getting the job again. You should do the meme today when he says the Wi-Fi password's still the same.
I love that one. There's a Twitter one which is old Sky News, and it's about the news comes out from about 4 years ago. Just
slow sports news.
Slow sports news. That's funny that is. Ball back onto that. Sorry.
Yeah. So a couple of last quick points. We need to get rid of some of the players on the periphery. The likes of 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗍, he's top of the list that need to go. That's going to be easier said than done, though. It's not just a case of, we don't want them, we'll easily find a buyer. We probably will struggle, especially to get a decent fee. So that's one point. I want to see us use the loan market much better.
Like we did under Nuno in first time. Yeah. Tommy Doyle again this year, loan to buy.
Yeah, and going back to the days of Willy Bolly, even Jimenez was loan to start with, Jota was loan.
Yeah. Let's
use that better, like on a try before you buy. And that might be a great way to do business. Who do I not want to sell? The two Brazilian lads.
Cunha and Gomez.
Yeah, for me, we should be building a team
around them.
Around those two.
Who do you want to sell?
Oh, yes.
I think based on what you said earlier about Neto's injury record, he could have a really good Euros, which would be good for us.
Yep.
And maybe it would be a good time to bring in... I think Matt Hobbs said this, didn't he? If he just wants to sell one big player rather than have to sell two or three. Could get a good fee for him and reinvest the money. So obviously don't want him to leave because he's a fantastic player.
He is.
But if I had to pick one, I'd probably try and go big on him.
Yeah. And let's hope he has a great Euros then.
Can I just make a point about what do you think about Fabio Silva in terms of the money that he could potentially go for or not?
And what kind of fee we could get for him?
I think we'd struggle to get 10 million there.
You probably would have got more last summer after his
I agree.
loan. We probably should have talked about him earlier as kind of like the flop of the season. He had the number 9 shirt. He started. Was it 3 out of the first 4 games?
Yeah. And the fans got behind him as well.
Yeah, so it was all set up for success.
Yeah.
In terms of the fee, would we get 10 million? I mean, he's still playing for Portugal under 21s. He's scoring goals at that level. Hasn't worked out for him at Rangers.
That's a worry.
Yeah.
That's a major worry.
That's a real
he
worry.
He did score the last game, but I mean, he is playing in the Scottish League, to be fair. That's like the equivalent of, like, lower championship, really.
Yeah, I mean, his ship's probably sailed here now, but I would like to add as well, that's not fair. Don't want people to point the finger at his character from my...
When we look at the young players, because some people have said, he's only a young lad, but we've been saying this for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And the transfer fee, it's not his fault. No, it isn't. But we've paid that money, and we expect something, and we haven't got it. So, the right time was last season, 100%. But I think they thought he was going to go to Rangers, score a hatful of goals, appease the fans. But Rangers, they're not going to spend 15, 20 million on a striker. They haven't got the dough to do that. So, but I wish it would have worked out for him. I do. I do. Even from an asset point.
I think from his point of view, Wolves' point of view, you've got to draw your losses now and just go.
Absolutely.
See, he might end up being, another Champions League one that scores a wonder goal against Chorley.
What was it called? Vaseline you've been snorting, Dave?
You know, I don't know, mate. I don't know. But I do think, you know, he's definitely one. Chelsea, on to you, mate. I mean, we're coming towards the end of the podcast now. What does success look like for you? You know, who should we sell, who should we keep? You know, where do we need to strengthen, in your opinion?
I think overall, a lot of us are going to agree here. Of like, we won't, depending on what team we start with, that's where we can build our foundation of what we can expect. I believe that we should be trying to do better each year. So if we are 11th, 12th, and we have a decent cup run of a quarter-final, maybe a semi-final, I think the fans will be happy with that. And I remember talking on your extra time of, would you have an FA Cup win and use the European opportunity? And for me,
well, we get both if we won the FA
and I was
Cup,
like,
though.
I'd have the cup opportunity because I think for fans' experience, I'd rather have that. But one thing I'd like to focus on is clean sheets.
Yeah.
Because the lack of clean sheets this season, you've mentioned it already, about the terrible play from the back. Sarr, as a shot stopper, is brilliant. As a distributor of the ball, he drives me insane. And it's like, I don't mean to be sarcastic like 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗄𝗏 because I just don't trust that back line. I think without Dawson, the way in which they do their defending and they draw the ball back,
to panic.
They are bringing pressure, and the reason why we had such a terrible end of the season is because we kept resorting back to that old way of playing. They just kept it in the defence.
That's a great
point. And
point.
Lamina kept turning backwards, and I said to Dawn, I was like, look forward.
And sometimes you've just got to, like I said, be ugly, and I'll come back to
old school football, kick it out.
Come to the point against Brighton away last season when we're getting absolutely hammered and we're still playing it out from the back. We're going to be low on confidence. We've shipped 4 to 5 goals. Just get it up top. Don't, you know, you're already low on confidence and you're still playing Russian roulette at the back. It frustrates me. I think there's a time and a place to do it. I understand why they do it. I understand it's now dropping down the leagues. Yeah. There's even junior managers asking for goalkeepers that can play out from the back, which is just ridiculous in my eyes. But I think there's a time and a place to do it, and it's a great point. And I think, but you've got to have the right personnel to do it as well.
Yeah, and you've got to be able to mix it up. You can play that way, but you've got to be able to mix it up as well. Go along with
Nothing wrong with that.
I think for Aim as well, it's our mentality, how we fade it, it's how we perform. When we go behind, we retreat into ourselves. We don't go for that second goal, but also when we score a goal, we concede one so quickly. That is poor management of a game. That's mentality gone. That's your switched off. And I think for my aims of, we need to keep more clean sheets because that's going to put less pressure on us. But also, we need to be able to use the ball better. Defenders are defenders for a reason. They're not as good footballers as people up front and forward. That's just the truth. No one wants to grow up and be a defender. They want to be a striker, and then they figure out where they are and they go back and back. I'm sure it's going to be harsh, going to get a hate for it, but I just think it's true. I think that's a great line, is it? No one wants to be a Gary Neville, do they? No one wants to be a Gary Neville.
That's why Dave's left back in the changing room.
Oh, a little bit right back.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So Matt Murray said to me once with goalkeepers, there used to be name dropping. I've got my steel toe caps off for dropping all these names out. But so formation.
What about Messi? What did he say to you?
5-3-2. I only used to chat to Ronaldo. There used to be 5-3-2, 4-4-2, but now formations are 1-4-4-2, 1-4-3-3, 1-4.
Sounds like a Wolves.
Yeah, but if you're going to have a goalkeeper, if you're going to play from the back, your goalkeeper has got to be as good as your centre halves, in my opinion. Otherwise, don't use him for that purpose.
Absolutely.
You've got to build your team. That's one thing that Gary Neville hasn't been able to do. He hasn't been able to suggest players that would complement the squad that he wants. But I do think we need to keep clean sheets next season. For selling players, I think we need to utilise the Euros. The Euros is a great opportunity to spot young talent, to spot talent that we can definitely use on loan. I do not think we use that enough.
It's the South American thing as well.
Copa America's on.
Copa America's in that on as well. We've used that market well recently.
Yeah, the fact that Neto's got into the Portugal team, I think based on his injuries, I think is very lucky for us.
Yeah.
I think it's a great opportunity to watch our players and see how we can fluctuate the price. And I was saying for Max Kilman, I don't mind selling Neto or Kilman because with Manchester United, I'm sorry, you can always have inflation, United cost.
Yeah.
Every team does it. If Bournemouth coming for him, 30 million. Man United's coming for him, 50 million. They've got the money, they're not buying the TV screens, they've got something extra on the side. So I would get rid of Pedro Neto because he's a liability for the squad and I feel like we need to utilise him
because
on
he's
the
injured,
Yeah.
not when he's on the pitch.
Yeah, because it's lack of injuries, but also he becomes then a pressure on everybody else.
So with Adama Traore, we all thought he was going to be this world beater. We've seen glimpses of it, and I think it's going to be the same with Neto to a degree. We all hope he's going to be this world, but I don't think he is. I think he's always going to have a stop-start career, and I don't want to see that for him.
If he doesn't have the forward that complements him, he's stuck. Adama Traore with Jimenez, world beater. Him with Eto's sidekick, average.
I just think with his injury record, I think that sadly he's always going to hamper him.
Well,
Neto
made a statement this week. He's had all these little injuries. They're sort of like, it's like 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗃 almost, where he said, I've broken down a couple of times, but they're all a result of the main injuries that he's had. So it's kind of like if you imagine an earthquake and then you have the little tremors. That's kind of like the analogy that I'm taking for him. But for someone like an Arsenal or a City or a United who aren't going to use him all the time, he probably fits into that.
Absolutely.
Whereas Wolves,
Well,
if he's fit, he plays.
That's another great point. That's another great point.
So yeah, it's a good point. And
that season we had no injuries. Do you remember when we couldn't even use it as an excuse?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, I love Neto. I think when he's on it, he's unplayable. I mean, when he came on against Liverpool, he was fantastic. At the weekend, and he's not fully fit, and he can create carnage. And if we had a fully fit Neto playing with Kuna with that midfield behind, and we had Wang on song like it can be, and then you've got Sarabia and stuff behind. That's a real dangerous situation. And still worry about our defence.
If he could keep fit and didn't have his injury record, he's got his £70-80 million.
Oh, easy. He's amazing because he's got that directness and that thing, and I think he's brilliant. But the problem is, he breaks down and then he's out for another 2 months. For me, what does success look like next season? I want to finish the transfer window stronger than we went into it. I want to have a deeper squad, and I want to make sure that we're not selling 3 of the prime assets. 1 you kind of go with, 2 maybe. But the money needs to be given back to Gary and to Hobbs, and if they make it stronger, and we bring in there's Chiquinho that could come back as well, Mosquera. I think the defence is massive. I've heard that one of Gary's priorities is 2 central defenders that he wants to bring in because it's a problem. We're leaking too many goals. We talked about not scoring enough goals, but we kept out enough to stay in the league. If you're leaking goals all the time, you'll end up being like a Leeds, and eventually you're gonna stop scoring, and then you're gonna be in trouble. Our form towards the end of the season was relegation form. Okay, we were never worried about it, but we could have finished as high as 7th, and it's
because we've got enough points.
£2.5 million a place, and we finished 14th. Okay, thank you very much, West Brom, who got knocked out by Southampton, because we've got an extra 5 million because the parachute payments, which is an extra bonus that's paid for Tommy Doyle. So for me, success next season. I want us to get to a final of a cup. Whether it's the League Cup or the FA Cup.
We in the Papa John's Trophy?
No, we're not in that one. Well, the under-21s probably are. So I'd love to get to a final of the
Birmingham Senior Cup.
That would be nice. A club like Wolves should be able to, if we have the good draw, we should be able to get to a final. I'd like to see us finishing in the top half, top 10, pushing for Europe, for a European place next year. I know if we do finish above 14th, it's progress, but for me, I want to look higher than that. There's an old saying: if you aim for the stars and you get the moon, you got to always aim higher than where you want. So why can't we be aiming for Europe and a cup? I agree with you. Can't sell Joe Gomez or Cunha. Absolutely can't sell.
That's a silly offer.
Can't sell it. Ray and Ait-Nouri, I think, is the right price coming, but I do think he's just going to improve and his value is going to go up. Neto, I'd love to keep Neto if he was fully fit, but if someone comes in for 60 million, sell him. But Wolves have made a statement they want 60 million. If you want 60 million, then don't sell him for anything less than 60 million. It's either 60 million or he stays here. Simple as. Cough the money up. Brighton do it really, really well.
They did really well with Chelsea, didn't they? And also, it's them having the confidence of saying, if you want one of our players, you've got to pay our bill.
Pay the dosh. And if he has a great Euros, then we'll ask for 70 million or 80 million. But, you know, I'd like to see Semedo stay because I think he's really on, come on a lot. No,
I thought it was 𝗥𝗲𝗰𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗏.
Why is that? Why?
The 80 million for net, I'm joking.
Well, you know, 60 million I think is fair share. So yeah, why can't we go? You know, why shouldn't we as fans expect us to be able to go and try and win a pot? We want a bit of success and try and aim for Europe next year. And it all comes down ultimately to Jeff, the board, Matt Hobbs and Gary O'Neill being all on the same page and having a really good thing. The fans want to see that we've got some ambition. They want to see ambition. They also want to know what's happening with the stadium. We haven't even covered that. You know, plans for the stadium. They want to see a roadmap. You know, they want to see all that sort of stuff. So why not? Why can't we aim high? You know, credit to Wolves on the VAR. Obviously, we're waiting on the season ticket prices and what happens with that. That's a different thing altogether that we'll have to cover. But whilst we're on season tickets, and we haven't, as we're recording this podcast will probably go out after the season tickets have come out. What's an acceptable increase for you?
It's easy for us to moan as supporters, isn't it? And say, oh, we want you to spend this, we want you to spend that, and we want to bring this player in, and we want to see investment in the stadium, and then they put the season tickets up a £5. We don't want to pay that. So we've got to be realistic, right? This is a 31,000 seater stadium. Increase. There's got to be an increase, isn't there? And it's been bandied at 12%. Look, it's what someone's prepared to pay. Whatever they go up to, they're still going to sell them all out, I'd imagine.
That waiting list is going to get ever smaller. Paul, any thoughts on that for you, and any final thoughts as we finish tonight for everyone?
It'd be a great PR exercise if they froze the prices, wouldn't they? I mean, the money really comes in from Sky, doesn't it, and other sources of revenue. So how much do they really gain from putting it up by 10%? How much really is that going to bring in? What player could that bring in for us, really?
But we talk about that. It's all right putting the prices up, but what about the stadium and the improvements? And
what about the quality out on the pitch as well? Are we getting value for money with a 12% increase?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to see it go up at all.
Coventry.
We talked
about we talked about Coventry earlier. They did a brilliant thing. They froze their prices this year, and they're in the Championship.
Yeah, and I guess my other kind of closing comment would be interesting to see what happens with the funding for Wolves Women.
We haven't talked about Wolves Women. We should say congratulations to Dan McNamara, who won Manager of the Month. Wolves Women have, of course, finished 4th in the league, and we should have a quick talk about them. Newcastle come in fully funded. You know, I've been to a few games. If you haven't been to a Wolves Women game, I would say try and get. Next year could be a big opportunity. Your girls have been ball girls for them as well. Yeah, and they're quite role models for them as well, aren't they?
Absolutely, role models. I did see Tammy in the crowd at Anfield, so she goes to the home and away games, and I actually said that to her. Both of my girls now play because of people like you.
Brilliant.
So that's another reason, for the funding, so that it has a wider effect. But the club are on the brink, I think, of being at least a championship level club. And no coincidence that the teams that finished above them, Forest, Burnley and Newcastle, have got that extra funding. So I don't think it would take an awful lot of funding in the grand scheme of things, but that's what it needs.
And don't you think that's also good for the Wolves brand as well? Because the women's game's growing so much, having a successful women's team playing at
massively
top levels is going to help the brand as well. So I don't know why they don't. It would be great to see the build that team and to be able to go fully professional as well, like the men.
Yeah,
they used to have to pay for their own kits and everything. At least they get the training facilities and the medical stuff. But I think some more investment should go into that area because it'll pay off for the brand. And they talk about the brand with esports, with music, with fashion. You've got lots of aspiring young girls, looking up to the Wolves players and wanting to grow up being Wolves fans of the women's team as well as the men's team, and want to follow in the likes of what you said, Tammy and Ellie and all of those. Going forward to be like young footballers as well.
They've definitely made some progress over the last few years. And I just really wanted to say how much I've enjoyed going to watch them play this season. I think I've done about 8 games home and away altogether, and there's no VAR. It's free for season ticket holders. The players are really nice people as well as good footballers. So I'll continue to be going to watch them play next season.
Absolutely. And final thoughts from you, Chelsea?
I think, well, first I want to say thank you for asking me to do the watch along. It's been a lot of fun.
People have really loved you for doing it.
But there's been so many people that you could have asked to do it, and it was a real pleasure to be doing it and try something different. And it's been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot.
Even though we haven't won
No,
yet.
but I think as well, I'd say if you can have fun when you're losing, imagine next year. And I think, you know, the community on there's really lovely, and I've really enjoyed it. I think overall for the team is they should be proud of what they've achieved this season, and I think they should be chasing for that FA Cup hope again, because I think when you're around Wolves and around the community, when we had that cup run, you could feel the buzz in the whole city, and we should be investing in that, and that links to the women as well. There's no excuse for a Premier League team not to have a fully funded female team. There isn't. You've got the money, you've got the support, and the women's game, you need to put money in it to allow it to grow, and you've got to give it that support and backing. And if they've got the Premier League support, they should do that.
I'm probably scared they'll be more successful than the first team here.
Well, that's going with the England team as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's just life.
They've shed the guys out to win a trophy, yeah.
One point I want to make very quickly, Dave, is we all talk about which players we don't want to go. We've got to be. There's going to be clubs swooping around O'Neill as well in the summer, and you know there's a few managers who have already announced they're going to be out of work in terms of clubs letting them go, and you know I'm sure there's going to be more. So in Gary O'Neill I trust completely, and I think we've just got to make sure that he knows the landscape here, and the board, the club give him as much support as they can, because he's going to be pivotal going forward. And the last thing we want is another manager coming in and this merry-go-round continuing on the carousel at Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club.
Absolutely, and if you get all of those things along, I mean, if you think to the Discord that we had in the summer, Walter, a laughing stock, everything that happened with J-Lo and the board, and we're not going to go over that, but there was so many fans divided and arguing against each other. We don't want to go back to that this summer. You know, Gary O'Neill, Matt Hobbs, you know, and all the team and the team have come together to create a connection with the fans again, and it's important that connection isn't broken and is built upon in the summer. Things like season tickets, you know, reasonable prices, or you know the VAR thing is a good PR thing that they've done, but like, you know, investment in the stadium, in the match day experience, you know, if people are paying more for stuff, then they need to make sure that experience is good in the stadium, and investing in the manager, in the team, and showing some ambition. Most Wolves fans want to see a team, if a team goes out on the pitch and plays for that badge, even if they lose, they'll forgive anything. And the same goes for the management of the club as well. They want to see you playing for the badge, and they, you know, fighting for the club and showing ambition to take us forward. Under the Nuno reign, we had dizzy heights of European football, 7th place. We were even pushing on Champions League before the pandemic. Things have happened. They took their eye off the ball. They've made mistakes, and then we've gone backwards. And if you stand still in the Premier League, you will go backwards.
Yeah.
So to go forward, you've got to invest in multiple areas, and then it will pay off. But you don't need to invest by spending £35 million on a wonder kid. You just need to be straight. And I think since Matt Hobbs come in, under his watch, it's certainly gone in the right direction. So trust in Hobbs, trust in Gary, make sure the process is gone, invest in the infrastructure, invest in the fans, give the fans what they want in terms of the match day experience, and a team on the pitch that we can proud of, and hopefully we'll go forward for next year. One last sentence to finish with to everyone.
Always Wolves.
Paul?
I think I'll just finish by saying, maybe like the players, I'm probably ready for a little bit of a break from the football kind of treadmill. Looking forward
England, how are we doing?
Yeah, looking forward to the Euros. I think we can go all the way. Do have some reservations about us defensively, but when you look around,
prediction?
I think we can get to the final.
There's no excuse not
Got-
getting to the final.
Your match winners are your forwards, and we've got that in abundance. So bring on anyone in the Euros. I think we can beat anybody.
Well, we'll be doing a bit of coverage on England as well. What's your thoughts?
You'll plug in.
Yeah. What's your prediction for the Euros? We might as well give a prediction.
There's no excuse for us not to make the final. I think we're very lucky in the last 2 cups, and we should have won the last one.
Yeah.
And it's our time now. There's no more excuses. We've already had the golden generation. They've come and gone. I think it's our time. And
Is it
if we
coming home?
lose
Is it
again,
coming home?
I can't. I'm not going to say it. I got my hopes up last time. I was crying. Don't need it again. So I'm going to do what my dad says. If we score a goal, we've done well. But I don't want to get too invested anymore. I think it's just too much heartbreak.
But you know you will.
Too much heartbreak.
You know you will. England prediction to finish with.
Final with the array of attacking talent that man has got at his disposal. There's no reason we can't get to the final.
I agree.
No, just the
Are we going to win it though?
No.
We're going to lose.
We don't win finals.
We're going to
Well,
lose on
Wolves-
penalties. No,
Wolves
we're going
don't
to.
win
It's going to go
semi-finals.
to
England
penalties.
don't win finals.
No, to be honest, if Wolves do get to a final, we generally win it. Semi-finals, we get knocked. We mess up on. We're going to win it on penalties.
Just don't score first in the final.
Yeah, don't score.
Don't
first.
score first.
Yeah, come back. Maybe we can win it on penalties for once. Anyway, we'll find out. Guys, listen. Hope you really enjoyed this one. Thank you for making your in-person full debut.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've done absolutely brilliant. It's great to have female fans represented, and you do an absolutely brilliant job of that. Lord Jason, absolutely brilliant. Thanks for coming on again. Professor Paul, it's been brilliant. Absolutely. If you've enjoyed this, please smash a like. If you're new, subscribe. Obviously, this will be going out on the podcast as well, so you can watch it on catch up or listening to it on the podcast. And hopefully, we'll get together in person before the season starts and do a pre-season prediction when we know a little bit more what's going on. Until then, from myself, Jason, Chelsea, and Paul, always Wolves.
Always Wolves.